Hey, how you doing? It's Josh from the Natural Workshop here, welcome back. So just recently I've had a bunch of questions about my workbenches. I did a video a while back now, I'll pop a card up there if I remember, about building a workbench in a worldwide lumber shortage, because obviously timber is extremely expensive at the moment and people are looking for alternatives. So I built this workbench here from plywood with an MDF top, and I've got MDF tops here, and on my other workbench over there. And I had a couple of questions, well, I've got a few questions really, as to why I'd used MDF over plywood. I did do a video on why I use MDF over plywood and what is good for one aspect and not for the other. So again, go check that out if you want, but I thought I would do one specifically on workbench tops because that's what people have been asking. So yeah, let's get into it then. So, options in the UK especially are limited. We don't have the huge natural resource of hardwoods like you guys do over, especially you guys in the States or on the continent. So we're kind of limited between what we can do. So there's normally, you've got a few options. So there's pine, which you get from like the big box stores, places like Wickes, B&Q, those sorts of things. And then there's plywood and MDF. So plywood, for the most part, when you go into a big box store, you're going to have three options. You're going to have like what's called a hardwood face here, which is the pink stuff that you find, which is great, kind of expensive. You're going to have the cheap shuttering grade stuff here, which is normally do it in like 15 and 18 mil. Again, it works for what it is, but I don't particularly rate this too much. And then you have the birch ply, which is obviously, I don't know if you've seen some of our videos, we do a huge amount of work with birch ply. Then when it comes to, oh yeah, so with the birch ply, it's really, really nice, really, really dense, beautiful material, but it's not cheap. I mean, it's almost, I would say it's probably 3 or 4 times the price of the rubbish shuttering ply, and at least twice the price of the hardwood base. And then your other options are your MDF, so you've got your bog standard MDF here, the Medite stuff is the one that we use, and then you've got moisture resistant. Sometimes you'll find this where this is sandwiched between a piece that looks like this will be in the core, and then another piece like this on the other side, but it's still moisture resistant. So, what do we use? This stuff is nice. The problem with when you're doing a pine workbench, or workbench top, is you're going to have a whole stack of them like this. So you've got glue time, you've got fixing time, and it's not cheap. This stuff here, I think, I was just looking at Wickes, and to make a workbench like this, which is 8 foot by 2 foot, so 2.44 meters by 600, was going to be like about 55 quid. It's not mega money, but it's not the hardest sort of stuff. It's relatively dense, but like I said, you're going to have to glue and screw or glue and nail each individual piece, which is going to take up a lot of time. And for me personally, I want something that's going to be quick and good and solid and done. I don't have a day to put a workbench top, well, a day and a half to put a workbench top together, especially once it's all glued and that. So I need speed and I need quality. So I personally use MDF because that's what I like. It's flat, it's consistently flat. If it says 18 mil, it's 18 mil. It's heavy, which means when you start doubling it up and gluing it together, you've got a really, really, really nice dense piece of material there to work on. And it's cheap, right? It is the cheapest of all the materials here. This is the next most expensive, this stuff. It works great, like I made all the cabinets here, and I made the base of the table here as well. It's great for stuff like that, great for shuttering, but it is soft. I don't know if you guys can see, it's marked the plywood there. This stuff here is really nice, it's very lightweight, but for me personally, with a workbench top, I don't want it to be light. I want it to be really heavy because I'm going to be hammering on it, nailing on it. The last thing I want is when I'm hammering on something for it to start bouncing, and if it's too, it's not very dense, then that's what's going to happen. Birch plywood, like I said, we do a huge amount of work with birch ply, and as much as I love it, it's so expensive. I mean, okay, so let's look at it like, so a workbench made out of this is like 55 quid, right? A workbench made out of MDF is probably going to cost you, I've written some notes down here, probably going to cost you like 25 quid. Okay, so that's 2 pieces, and I'm working on the 8 foot by 2 foot. So you're just going to rip it down the middle, put them together, glue them, maybe put a couple screws in, some nails, and it's done. 25 quid. The moisture resistant stuff, maybe 35, 40, depending on where you're getting it from. This this softwood plywood, which is the shutter and ply, is like 35 to 45, depending on where you get it. The hardwood face could be anything from 35 to 60 pounds, again depending on where you get it. The birch ply is going to be anything from 60 to 100 pounds, depending on the base grade that you get, which is expensive. Yeah, did I say the MDF was 20 quid? 20 quid, or like 20-25 quid is nothing. And the other thing you've got to remember is the density, right? It's the weight. Because obviously you don't want, when you're hammering on something, you don't want it bouncing, like I said. So the hardwood faced is like 30-34 kilos, and you have to bear with us with the weights, because I checked a bunch of websites and they were all different, and the vast majority of them get all their plywood and MDF from the same sorts of places, so I don't understand why they were different. But yeah, so the hardwood face is like 30-35 kilos, the birch is 40 kilos, so that's mega heavy. The MDF, again, about 35 kilos, and the moisture resistant is about 40-45. Now, I saw one website that said that an 18mm sheet of this is like 35 kilos. I have never, ever picked up an 18mm sheet of moisture resistant MDF and it been 35 kilos. I mean, the vast majority of the time it takes 2 of us to lift it, so I don't know where that comes from. Yeah, and then this stuff, again, is about 30-35 kilos. So, why do we use the MDF? It's, like I said, it's cheap, it's flat, it's consistent, and did I say it's cheap? Right, the thing about being cheap is a workbench is going to get again, this is my personal opinion, tools are there to be used, right? I don't make things, I mean, I make things look pretty for clients and for the house, but not in the workshop. Anything in here is going to get used and abused, and I don't want to feel bad if I'm drilling and I go through it. I don't want to feel bad if I'm using the jigsaw and I hit the end of it. I don't want to feel, like you can see here, this has got glue. Glue's awesome. You get glue on a bit of MDF, you just go through, scrape it off, sand it, done. You get stain on it, doesn't bother me, I don't care. If I'd spent a day putting a softwood workbench together, or you know, I know a bunch of guys in the States use things like maple and stuff. I mean, that's beautiful, but if I then spilled a bottle of stain over it, or a cup of coffee or something, man, I'm going to be so wounded, that's going to suck. Like, I don't know if you guys can see, like here, I've got a mark for one of our products. We wrap it in bubble wrap, and we sell like a few hundred here and there, so I've got a mark and I can just pull it out and cut it, not a problem. What else is there to say? Yeah, I mean, that's it really. It's all about ease of use and how long it's going to last. And the other option is you can always, I see a bunch of guys, they use something called masonite, which is like a fibre board, real thin stuff, maybe 4mm, and they top them with that. But again, for me, I'd rather just chuck a sheet of 18mm down for 20 quid, and then once if I get any rubbish on it, I can just sand it off. If I get glue on it, I'll just chisel it off. And if it becomes an issue, I can just take it off, chop it up, skip it, put another one on. 20-25 quid, job's a good one, right? And yeah, nice and simple. This workbench here, we've only got a single piece on it, but this is more of an assembly table than a workbench. This one here, I've got double thickness 18mm, and I tell you what, I can lift a fair amount, and this absolutely rinsed me picking it up and putting it on there. My other workbench over there is a workbench, is an MDF top, and we've had that for 6 years, 6-7 years I think, and I still haven't replaced it because it's still good, it still works. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's why I spend all this money. I say that. If you want to spend loads of money and make a beautiful workbench, go for it. If you just want a quick, cheap option that's gonna last you 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and bearing in mind that's lasted 6 years, 6-7 years, that piece over there, and it gets used every day. You know, you're talking 40-50 hours a week we're in here, minimum, and it's always having gear put on it, we paint on it, and you just sand it off. You know, we hammer on it, we beat it, it's got drill holes in it, you just fill them up, sand them, done. And there's no stress, because it only costs you 20 quid, right? So yeah, so that's where I would be. I would say use MDF. By all means, if you really want to, get some plywood and stick an MDF top on it, but don't really see the need, to be honest with you. I would personally, I'd probably use some moisture resistant MDF and chop it up, stick it down, maybe laminate a couple pieces and go from there. Right, so one thing I forgot to mention, a lot of people ask this, or a lot of people mention this, the reason they don't use MDF is because it swells when it gets wet. I understand that, right? There is a really simple, easy way to get around that, and that is to just put a wax on it. You can wax it, you can put a poly on there, like a polyurethane finish, a varnish. You could oil it if you wanted to, but I personally, I wax it. I have, like I've got a sled here that's got an MDF, I've got a sled here, it's got an MDF base on it. You can see how much this has been used going backwards and forwards on the saw. This sled is maybe 5 years old, I think, 4 or 5 years old. And it only started to go out of square because we dropped it. So that's the only reason we changed it. I have a tendency to make a brew, make a coffee, come in, put it on the sled and go for all my measurements. So if you wax it, it doesn't cause you any issues. But you do have to treat it. But in all fairness, whatever type of workbench you build, if you make a nice pine one or a maple one or a hardwood one, you're going to treat it, right? You're going to put a wax or a finish on there. A lot of people use poly, like a polyurethane. I don't mind it so much, but where I'm going to be sanding, so say for example I'm sanding this piece of timber, this is my workbench and I've polyed this, I don't want to be sanding on here, maybe slip off and start to go through the finish. It might leave small little indents, and they can leave little indents in the timber. So yeah, if you're worried about finishing it, you just put the cheapest wax on there that you can. Sometimes I use like machine paste wax, or yeah, just like a super cheap wax finish. Rub it all on, buff it off, done. It's not going to get wet, it's not going to swell, it's not going to be a problem. Alright? I genuinely would be really interested to hear what you think. I know a lot of guys, especially over in the States, think I'm mad for using MDF the way that I do, but I do think it has its uses. And I think as long as you are making sure that either you're using a respirator, you've got a well ventilated area, and you're using good quality dust extraction or cutting it outside because you don't want to be breathing the dust in, I love it, right? I really do. So yeah, please tell what you think below. If you disagree with me, awesome. Explain to me why you disagree with me. Because I'd love to have a chat with you. If you have a look at the comments, I'll reply to every single comment people put in there. So by all means, drop something below and we'll have a chat about it. And I would love to hear your thoughts, all right? You'll take it easy, you have a good one, and I shall catch you next time.